Hey guys, I hope you're doing great and following the 3 H's of the channel. In this video, I have some bizarre but pretty terrifying encounters for you. They kind of vary about what they are. So, if that sounds like something you're interested in, pull up a stump and let's jump into it. Thank you for watching. Way back when I was younger, probably around 11, I had something really crazy happen to me and my mom. It was a comfy Saturday summer night in Appalachia. My mom is single and she had custody that weekend. I went with mom, she was a food caterer, to help cater an event that was at some party grove in the woods. I was quite bored, obviously, being around adults all day. I pretty much just sit in the passenger seat of the van the whole time and only come out when I'm needed. But finally, 9 p.m. comes. I help mom pack up the van as fast as I can because I just want to go home. Finally, we hop in the van. It smells like garlicky shrimp and vegetables. My mom says something to the effect of, "Honey, you did so good today helping me. You worked from 5 to 9. That's 4 hours. $5 an hour. You made $20 today." As a kid, I was like, that's so much money. I'm gonna buy so many toys tomorrow. So we were driving home on this desolate woodland, boony road. There were no cars anywheres. We were flanked by a tree canopy. The only view of the sky is directly above the road. And then my mom says, "Honey, do you see that?" I lean forward to get a better skyward view out the windshield. I see this giant, bluish-white disc shape. It seems to be following above us and kind of ahead of us in a way. The perspective is weird. It's too big, too oval, and too bright to be the moon. I ask, is that the moon? Anyways, I was kind of worried now because it's moving with us. My mom says, no, maybe it's a helicopter. And then suddenly, our brakes lock up. We screech to a halt in the middle of the road. The catering stuff in the van crashes against the back of our seats. The seatbelt hurts my torso. I know I'm gonna have a bruise after. Suddenly, there's a horn blaring behind us, still in the middle of the road. We hear a guy yell, "You guys need any help?" Mum mutters out, no, thanks though, and waves him on. He drives around the van and holds his hand up as he passes, friendly gesturing. At this moment I realize that my ribs hurt. I have a terrible, nauseating headache. My mom resumes driving. The van smells different now. It smells like electronics, batteries, and small electric motors. The green LCD dashboard clock now says 2:33 a.m. We drive in terrified silence the rest of the way home. I can still see that bright green 2:33 a.m. when I close my eyes, just like it was yesterday. It was just so wrong. My mom and I still talk about it over 20 years later. We never really told anyone else, and she still maintains that she did not slam on the brakes and that they just kind of activated on the car all by themselves. I'm not English, but I'll give it my best shot. This is a tale of 2 boys in the woods. It's not my own tale, but it's a true tale. Some would say, no, not true, that's not how it happened. But it's how the other guy, the one who lived, explained it. They had been visiting a small place in Norway. About 350 people lived there at the time. I lived there. They were city boys. They wanted to see the country, the woods, and wanted to enjoy a bit of beer and maybe the company of a woman. At one point, a third guy had joined them in their endeavor to enjoy themselves. Later, it was told that none of them knew who he was or where he'd come from, just that it felt right to have him there, like they had been missing a piece of a puzzle, and that guy was that piece. Let us call our two friends, Gear and John, and the third guy, who no one really remembers even seeing anymore, for Seb. John began feeling ill one night. He told Gear that Seb was acting weird and that he felt sick being near him. Gear laughed it off, but John became more reclusive and apparently refused to have Seb there anymore. Gear and John fought all that day, and Gear told John to stay in the cabin and be sick all he wanted because Gear was heading out to drink. However, while Gear was drinking, John joined him. It was about 27 below, this is Celsius, and icy that day. John explained that he didn't want to sit at home and that he was sorry for his behavior. When they left, John didn't get his jacket, claiming that he was fine without it. Now this is where it gets a bit tricky. You see, Gear swore John came home with him, that they shared a meal, and that John told Gear that Seb had finally left. Gear thought nothing of it until he was woken by a knocking at the cabin door. It was the cops, telling him that John had been found floating under the ice under a small bridge, and that his clothing had been found neatly folded in a crossing by a taxi driver, his shoes on top. Apparently John had been dead for 12 hours, while Gear knew that he spent time with John within that time range and told the police so. The police figured that he was in shock, denial even, that sort of thing, but Gear was adamant. There were 2 plates on the table, and John's bed had indeed been slept in. But when Gear told them about Seb, they became very serious and began asking questions about Seb, how he spoke, how he walked and talked, that sort of thing. Gear willingly explained everything about Seb, and then was carted off to the mental hospital, charged for murder, but was deemed too sick to stand trial. If I think back to that night, it snowed heavily, and the taxi driver found the clothing free of snow, neatly folded. If John died that early, there's no way those clothes wouldn't be covered with snow and impossible to see. So what's your guess? A skinwalker seemingly gliding into their friendship seamlessly, or schizophrenia? This one night, I got woken up again in the middle of the night. It had been happening quite a bit. It was one of my days off, so I was kind of mad about this. I think that maybe one of my roommates made a noise or dropped something like that. But the whole house is dead quiet. This is strange, since myself and all 3 roommates have TVs running almost 24/7. I realize how thirsty I am. I go downstairs to get some water from the fridge. It's a 2-bed, 2.5-bath house. One of the roommates sleeps on the couch downstairs because, we're not sharing a room with him. But I notice that he's not there. This is not super unusual. He's a bit of a stoner. We call him D, and he's important later on. My anxiety kicks in, but again, I have an anxiety disorder anyways. But I hear a scratching noise from the sliding glass door. I think maybe it's our dog. I finish my business downstairs, and then go back upstairs. I poke my head into each housemate's room. Everyone is sound asleep. But wait a second. The dog is asleep with one of them. My heart sinks. I try to rationalize. I think it must be D outside smoking. It could have been a leaf, maybe a small animal. And then I hear the noise of the garage door slam shut. Lee smokes in the garage. It's not terribly unusual, save for the slamming this late in the night, and the fact that he is currently asleep in his bed. I head back downstairs to check on D to see if he came back or not. He comes bolting up the stairs, looking like he just seen a ghost. He grabs me on the way up, almost yanks my arm off. I'm like, man, calm down. What's going on? He tells me to shut up and to not make a sound. I've never seen him like this. He's your typical super chill hippie stoner. We're in my room now. We're sitting on my couch. The stairwell is right outside the door. The house is quiet again, save for our heavy breathing. And then we hear a noise. It starts off silently, but it gets very loud. It sounds like knives going up a rusty garbage can. I look at D. His eyes are closed. He's sweating and visibly shaking, really freaking out. There's the sound of heavy, labored breathing coming from downstairs. I stand up quietly as possible. I grab my dad's old M9 that I keep on my nightstand and a little flashlight out of the drawer. I think I'm going to take care of whatever's doing this. D is sitting on the couch like he's frozen in place. I peek my head around the corner, looking down the stairwell. It's pitch black. I think, well, this is terrifying. I stand there for a moment, gather my courage, and begin walking downstairs, silently as possible. I turn on the light, halfway down. I hear shuffling. One of our dining room table chairs gets knocked over. I nearly jump down the rest of the stairs and rounded the corner into the dining room. I see the tail end of a tall, humanoid creature rush out the back door. I rush over to the back door and I look out. I see nothing. The backyard is surrounded on all sides by 3 neighbors. It must have jumped over the fence. I think, well, I guess there's no 5 seconds of fame for me. I called the cops and I explained the situation. 4 squad cars pull up and I explain what happened, everything I saw. D gives his story. D was on his way inside when the back door opened. He saw the thing, a humanoid creature about 6.5 feet tall, completely black. D says its eyes were glowing white when it saw him, but I just thought he was high. The cops didn't find anyone or anything in their search. Nothing has happened since then either, but it still gives me goosebumps to think about it. A robber probably wouldn't act like that. A human would have either turned tail or came up with him to try and attack him, right? Either way, I'm glad it's over now. We've bought a couple handguns since then in an effort to be more prepared. Hello horror fans, it's Corey. I'm back at it again for a 4th time. Tim has requested my Skinwalker story, and I have worked long and hard on this encounter because it's important to me that listeners believe it. I need people to understand just how exactly terrifying it was in real life. Please trust me when I tell you that this is not fiction. It isn't easy to describe what it's really like to encounter an ancient evil spirit face to face, so I'm going to try my best. I just pray that you will all truly listen, because this is exactly what happened to me a long time ago at Apache Lake near the marina. I don't like reliving that night, because it was not just incredible, it was also crazy. A serious case of high strangeness. I totally understand that it's just simply human nature for the general public to try and rationalize my sighting. Most people might dismiss me by saying that I simply misidentified an ordinary animal. Others might think that it's more likely that I just have an overactive imagination. I can honestly assure you that that is false. This was my first encounter with the Skinwalker, and as luck would have it, I am the idiot who became curious late one night and decided to investigate a ruckus next to the marina. This is exactly how I managed to stumble right up next to this giant creature. I was only 5 feet away, but I still didn't realize that I was facing something that was pure evil and in serious danger. But during my encounter, something very strange and unexpected happened. This hairy, creepy, hulking, evil cryptid locked eyes with me. Right then and there, it stared straight into my soul.
and at that point, I am sure I must have freaked of fear, because believe me, I was terrified. I thought it was about to kill me, and the truth is, that night, I really should have died, probably in a horrible manner, and by all rights, I would have, except something odd saved me. As I braced myself to become this thing's breakfast, it turned to face me and smiled. Creepy, right? That's how I'm 100% positive that this creature recognized me. Even years later, I still shiver thinking about it. I don't understand how, but this werewolf definitely knew exactly who I was. This is my true encounter, and what I now call the Apache Lake Skin Monster, my term. It all happened late one night, January 9th, 2001, deep in the shadows of a parking lot near the marina. That is where I came face to face with this monster. Honestly, I was scared to death. Here is the truth of what happened. I had been working late nights for the restaurant and resort for a number of years by this point in time. I had already experienced many strange things, but nothing prepared me for that. It was after the lunar eclipse in Arizona's Superstition Mountains where I witnessed my first real skinwalker. I truly believe that this celestial event was somehow linked to my encounter. My gut tells me all these years later that the eclipse and my sighting were connected and that it was no coincidence. It was early, around 3 a.m. that morning, when I survived this close encounter. The simplest description is that it was a giant werewolf. Apache Lake Marina has 3 hotels and a restaurant/bar located right on Apache Lake. It has gorgeous pebble beaches and is often called the jewel of the Superstition Mountains because of the turquoise-colored water. It was late one night after a long shift of bartending when I came face to face with the skinwalker. On that night, the planets aligned with the blood moon, and all of this happened. I remember the bar was packed, so I did my best to keep the spirits flowing. That's a joke. A huge crowd had gathered on the restaurant's patio to witness the event. The moon was so big and beautiful that night, so I decided to record the eclipse on my new iPhone. It was totally magnificent. That night was spectacular, and I never thought it would end with me getting tangled up with a giant beast, commonly known as the skinwalker. Bear with me as I describe this place a little bit more. Apache Lake is situated between Davis Wash and Crabtree Wash in the Tonto National Forest. The upper level is a restaurant and a bar with a little store. Below that, in the middle tier, there are 3 hotels, including employee housing. The lower level is a kick-ass spot filled with beaches, camping areas, and a boat launch. There is also a helicopter pad for the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. The band that night played on the restaurant's patio, and the resort was absolutely packed. We closed the bar for an hour so everyone could go all out and watch the lunar eclipse. It was the supermoon, so big and bright, with a beautiful crimson color the entire night. After I finished my shift, I left work with my friend Ryan, and we decided to go back to my apartment. We wanted to hang out and have some beers and play guitar. After working all night, we sat on my patio, just chilling. It's a super sweet spot, facing the lake. I was living in the bottom of the second hotel nearest to Jack's Cove. After Ryan went off to bed is when I saw my first dogman. There may have been others since. It happened deep within the dark heart of those spooky Superstition Mountains. By the way, it's also close to the same area where I witnessed the 1997 Phoenix Lights. That story is in the episode Chasing Shadows. Apache Lake has always been very well known globally as a supernatural hotspot. The place is chock full of ley lines, and magic truly abounds there. Trust me on that one. My place was located in the second hotel on the bottom floor. It was right next to a parking lot. That's where the encounter actually took place. It was after enjoying a few beers when Ryan decided to head off to bed, but I stayed up. I didn't have to work the next day, and that's when I heard a huge commotion. I came around the corner of my building and walked right into the lower parking lot. I remember a chihuahua was barking its head off above in the upper parking lot. This is why I first decided to go investigate. After all, my job at the resort also included providing security for all our guests. This was possibly the dumbest decision that I've ever made. As I turned the corner into this shadowy parking lot, this is exactly what I witnessed. I saw a 300-pound creature rummaging through a Dodge Caravan. At first, my brain tried to rationalize what I was seeing as two people trying to burglarize this van, but I was completely wrong. I made a stupid mistake, and I walked up for a closer look. That's when I saw this dog man punch its claws right through a metal roof, tipping that Dodge onto its side, and it started shaking and spilling the contents all over the ground. It was beyond incredible. That skinwalker was so powerful. Tipping that car onto its side was nothing for it. The whole thing was like some scene in a Stephen King movie. This horrible act reminded me of a child searching for a prize in the bottom of a Cracker Jack box. That's when it noticed me. It dropped the van, popping all 4 tires. By now, I was only 5 feet away from this creature, and I was absolutely sure that this was not the work of vandals. Here is my best description. It was clearly an upright wolf, but bigger than any bodybuilder ever imagined. This creature was really smart, too. It knew to stay hidden deep within the shadows, but it didn't matter because I got a real close look. It was at least 300 pounds, and its arm muscles rippled as it ignored me and continued tearing apart this van looking for food. Coolers and camping gear were spilled all over the ground. Then it cocked its head, letting out a bone-chilling, guttural growl. In that brief moment, we made eye contact. Right that second, I saw a spark of recognition in its beady yellow eyes. Its head was enormous. It reminded me of a prehistoric direwolf. It also had a very pronounced snout with glowing yellow eyes and huge, ferocious teeth. I thought I was looking straight at the devil. This thing was highly intelligent, and it was definitely, a bipedal werewolf. It took 2 steps straight toward me on muscular legs. Its hands were huge and raccoon-like. Each finger ended with a 3-inch razor-sharp claw. It was a giant, towering over me. The fur was midnight black, and it shimmered in the glow of the parking lot's fluorescent lighting. By now, I was full-on crapping my shorts and feeling like I was about to become a skinwalker's dessert. But as this dogman towered over me, it grinned. That's why I'm positive it recognized. I believe it's the only reason it didn't kill me. It knew who I was. I must have looked so stupid standing there. I just froze, preparing to be ripped apart. Instead, I finally shook my head, clearing it, and I started slowly backing up. Next, I turned and ran, heading straight for my room. I expected this dogman to give chase and devour me before I could even reach it. Only it didn't. I spent the next few hours cowering in my room, waiting and watching out my picture window, ready for death to come crashing through. By 9 a.m. in the morning, I was a nervous wreck and couldn't take it any longer, so I headed back out to see what kind of damage this thing has caused. Only there wasn't any. Everything was all gone. In fact, most of the people were also gone. This van with 4 flat tires and a ripped roof had just vanished, and so had all of our guests. That was very strange, because it was still early on a Saturday morning, and all the rooms were rented out until Sunday. Very weird, right? I was extremely confused. It was very mysterious How did they fix that van so fast? And where did all the guests go? So I went up to the office to ask my boss those same questions. However, they completely lied to me. It was obviously covered up. But I swear to all of you listening that this really happened. None of this made any sense until years later, and only after I had heard numerous rumors about satanic cults that were worshipping in this area and practicing witchcraft. The only thing that makes sense to me now is, I believe my boss is a skinwalker. Thanks all. And that was sent in by Corey. So Corey, thank you for sending in your story, and I hope I could do it justice.
So, before I end the video, I just want to say happy birthday to anybody whose birthday is this week or in April. Mine is this week, so happy birthday to me, eh? But yeah, I hope you liked the video, and if you had a favorite one of them, then let me know which one it was down in the comments. If you have one of your own, I have an email as always, and there are ways to support the channel in the description. There's a PayPal, a Patreon, and super thanks here on YouTube. And of course, just watching the video helps too. And with that, I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for pulling up a stump, and thank you for watching. Have a good week.